Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session on last-minute sure-shot topics for net. You will surely get questions if you prepare a little based on these authors and works. And today we are doing literary theory and cultural studies. As you know, literary theory and cultural studies questions are many in net. I don't want to just tell you the areas. Today, we are going to do questions. I'm sure this will really help you. So, we are going into the question answers. Guys, I have not given options, but without the options, there will be no confusion. Visually, you'll remember this. Okay, we'll cover a lot of areas now. Meanwhile, tell me, have you been studying? Have you been doing well? Are you excited and energetic? And all ready for the exam? You should be. Because we have studied a lot. Be happy, relaxed. Like this, some more days we'll revise. You're also studying on your own. Everything is going to be okay. Okay? Right. First question to you. Travels in HyperReality. Well, this is from postmodernism. You will think I know. HyperReality is Jean Baudrillard, but that is not the answer. Travels in HyperReality is a book by Dash. I will give you a clue. He's a semiotician. He has written some novels. Travels in HyperReality is a book by Umberto Eco. Remember, guys, Umberto Eco has written a novel set in a Benedictine monastery, Name of the Rose. He's a semiotician. He has written about semiotics. And he has also written how to write a thesis. What you should do is take Umberto Eco in Wikipedia or internet, look at his important works tonight itself. There could be a question from Umberto Eco. They have asked about Umberto Eco several times. Travels in HyperReality is an important book by Umberto Eco. Will you remember? Very good. Whatever we are seeing on the screen, based on that, thoda sa extra reading karna before the exam, if possible, tonight. Who coined the term McDonaldization? This is also about commodification. This is about globalization. This is about postmodern culture. There is a book that he wrote about McDonaldization. George Ritzer. When you have to study terms and books that you do not know much about, it will really help if you look at the cover page, if you read a little bit about it. In Google, there will be a preview. People would have asked questions about it. All that, if you read, if there is time, you should make some notes about it. Then you will remember it. Okay, when you hear a new term, keep a notebook and write all the new terms there. That is also important. Already in some exam, they have asked about McDonaldization, isn't it? That is an important term in postmodernism. George Ritzer. When you are looking at the screen, try to visually remember. Try to find some connections and visually remember. Will you do that? Very good. Athena Athanasiou. Wow, that is a good name. Athena Athanasiou co-authored the book Dispossession, the performative in the political with performative. Will it be Judith Butler? Dispossession, the performative in the political. Written by two people together, Athena Athanasiou. And guess karo, performative, could it be Judith Butler? Could it be J.L. Austin? It is indeed Judith Butler. What are the other works of Judith Butler? Abhi, tonight we have to look up. Everybody knows she wrote about performativity, gender trouble, bodies that matter. These are the famous works. Other works that are not very famous could be important. So today, your homework is to read a little bit extra about all the major works of Judith Butler. Not only gender trouble, not only bodies that matter, there is also dispossession, the performative in the political. You can write in the chat box other works that you know as well. Like Judith Butler, there are many contemporary gender theorists, important gender theorists. Along with looking up Judith Butler, look about contemporary gender theorists. Okay, are you ready for the next question? Semiotic democracy is a term coined by semiotic democracy. It could be about visual culture. It is definitely about cultural studies, isn't it? Semiotics is by Charles Sanders Peirce. Semiology is by Ferdinand de Saussure. There are other semioticians like David Bordwell, etc. This is John Fiske. Semiotic democracy is by John Fiske, the term. He is the author of Television Culture. T capital hona bhi chahiye. His other books are Television Culture, Media Matters. Media Matters and Television Culture are two books by John Fiske. Already in net, they have asked a question about John Fiske. The term semiotic democracy, you should look up. John Fiske is a television studies theorist. Television studies, film studies, visual culture studies, these are all part of cultural studies. Next question. Who coined the term differend? That is also the name of his book. Differend means unresolved dispute. Will you remember that? Differend means unresolved dispute. This term differend was coined by a postmodern theorist based on the Holocaust denier, Robert Faurisson. Robert Faurisson denied the Holocaust. He said Holocaust did not happen. Based on that unresolved issue, who coined the term differend and wrote a book about it? You know this man. You know this man because he has written another important work. And this man is Jean-Francois Lyotard. Lyotard coined the term differend. Lyotard's very famous book is The Postmodern Condition. In the introduction to The Postmodern Condition, Lyotard said, postmodernism is incredulity towards meta-narratives. That is a very basic thing that all of you know. Differend is a book by Lyotard. Will you remember, guys? Differend means unresolved dispute. In which work? Derrida wrote in 2 columns. The left one devoted to a reading of Hegel. The right column devoted to a reading of Jean Genet. In 1 page itself, 2 columns. 1 column devoted to a reading of Hegel. Right column devoted to a reading of Jean Genet. Which column will you read? What is the idea of this book? One book contains many books. You can't just write one book. Anna, which is this book? You might know already. This is very famous. If you don't know, koi nahi. Abhi to pata chala. Now you know. It is the book Glass. Dear friends, Derrida, of course, is very important. What are the books by Derrida? At least titles you should know. Little bit more you should know. Main bhi hu na, I will also tell you like this. Thoda, thoda. Derrida's Glass, 2 columns. Will you remember? Glass, 2 columns. Hegel, Genet. Hegel, Genet. Will you remember? Very good. Whose motto is always historicize? Must be some historian. Always historicize. Who said that? Is it a Marxist historian? Is it a postmodern historian? It is Frederick Jameson who said always historicize. Frederick Jameson said always historicize. Tonight, what will you do? Read extra on Frederick Jameson, because questions always come from Frederick Jameson. Always read Frederick Jameson, always historicize. Kaisa hai code? Always read Frederick Jameson, always historicize. Okay. Next question, ready? By the term dash, Foucault denoted a discursive space that is somehow other. You know that one. I know. Chat box mein likho. What is the term for Foucault denoting a discursive space that is somehow other? Like a symmetry. A symmetry is a space that is somehow other. You said it. It is heterotopia. Foucault terms. Google search karna. Okay, guys. Foucault, one term by Foucault, definitely you can get. Question. Heterotopia is like a symmetry, a discursive space that is somehow other. Nobody goes and sleeps in symmetry, right? Right. Okay, next question. Modernity and double consciousness. When I did revision with my paid students, I had said this. Do you remember, my students? Modernity and double consciousness is the subtitle of which work? It is about blacks. I will give you a clue. It is about blacks. Blacks who are living in Europe, Africa, and Americas. Yes, it is The Black Atlantic by Paul Gilroy. This idea of Black Atlantic is against the idea of homogeneous identity. The idea of Black Atlantic is against the idea of homogeneous identity. It is against essentialism. It is against nationalism. Will you remember? The Black Atlantic by Paul Gilroy, Modernity and Double Consciousness. Okay, next question to you guys coming up. YouTube babies, everybody in YouTube, you should answer in the chat box. Okay, here you go. The Colonial Present is a book that explores present-day dimensions of Orientalism. Arey, Orientalism abhi bhi hai. Neo-Orientalism. Orientalism is still going on. Islamophobia is Orientalism. About all that, there is a very major book, The Colonial Present, exploring present-day dimensions of Orientalism. Who is the author? If you don't know, I will tell you now. We will study together. I have also learned it now. We will learn together. Derek Gregory wrote The Colonial Present, exploring present-day dimensions of Orientalism. Did you understand? Are you typing in the chat box? Wonderful. Derek Gregory. Visually, you should remember, theek hai? Very good. Who made the statement, Commonwealth literature does not exist? That is very famous. It is also a chapter in a book. Commonwealth literature does not exist. He is against the term Commonwealth literature. You know it. It is Salman Rushdie. In Imaginary Homelands, this is a chapter. Commonwealth literature does not exist. You will remember, won't you? Very good. Salman Rushdie. If you are in doubt, you should watch the video again, okay? Only 15-20 minutes it will take. Death of a Discipline is a book by Dash. Death of a Discipline. I will give you a clue. This is a feminist, post-colonial critic of Indian origin. Feminist, post-colonial critic of Indian origin. Everybody knows. Gayatri Spivak. Death of a Discipline by Gayatri Spivak. Remember to look up Gayatri Spivak's works. Bell Hooks also, she died recently. It will be important to look up Bell Hooks' works. Gayatri Spivak also, please check. In the introduction to the work Nation and Narration, I wrote Nation and Nation. Galti ho gayi. It is Nation and Narration. Ho gaya theek. In the introduction to the work Nation and Narration, Homi Bhabha states that a work written by Benedict Anderson significantly influenced him. Which book by Benedict Anderson influenced? Benedict Anderson is the man who said, nations are imagined communities. Ha, wohi to hai. Imagined communities. Reflections on the origin and spread of nationalism. Imagined communities, reflections on the origin and spread of nationalism by Benedict Anderson influenced Homi Bhabha's Nation and Narration. You'll remember, I'm sure. Will you? Yes. Concerning violence on national culture. These are chapters in which book? Concerning violence on national culture. You know it is a very, very famous book. Published in the 1961. The author died just after this. Yes, it is The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon. The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon. Concerning violence on national culture. Chapters in the book. Analyzing a work from the perspectives of the colonizer and the colonized is called what? Analyzing a single work from the perspectives of the colonizer and colonized, both elements are there in one work. This is called what? I will give you a clue. This is a term by Edward Said. Edward Said. Contrapuntal reading. Contrapuntal reading. Analyzing a work from the perspectives of the colonizer and colonized. Contrapuntal reading. Edward Said. ठीक है? Very good. White Mythologies, Writing History and the West is a pioneering book by Dash. White Mythologies, लगता है post-colonial है. White Mythologies, Writing History and the West is a pioneering book by Robert Young. This is the guy who coined the term tricontinentalism also. White Mythologies and Tricontinentalism. Robert Young. Will you remember? Very good. Elementary aspects of peasant insurgency in colonial India. Arey, colonial India. Elementary aspects of peasant insurgency. कौन होगा peasants के बारे में जो लिखा? Colonial India, peasant historiography. It must be Subaltern Studies, Ranajit Guha. Ranajit Guha, Subaltern Studies. Subaltern Studies began with this book. Elementary Aspects of Peasant Insurgency. Will you remember? That is very, very important book by Ranajit Guha. Yes. I am very glad that a lot of people are writing in the chat box. I am looking at your answers. Very good. Next question. Who coined the term cultural poetics? Guys, if you like the video, please subscribe, like, and press the bell icon so that tomorrow's live you will get notification. Who coined the term cultural poetics? It is the new term for another theory. It is New Historicism. New Historicism is also, it is related to cultural poetics. It is Stephen Greenblatt. Arey, option wala to at 11 o'clock hai na, subah 11 o'clock every day we are doing option wala. Without option, if you read, it helps you in another way. Every time if you see option, you will get used to guessing. That is not real learning. That is why I avoided options. Because both we need. With options, you will get used to guessing. That is not real learning. So if you study like this, I thought you will remember it more. So we will try both. Okay. Very good. Who coined the term cultural poetics? Stephen Greenblatt. Remember that. Who wrote the book Inventing Human Rights? This is a very major book. It has been heralded as the most comprehensive analysis of the history of human rights. Very important book by Lynn Hunt. She's a professor, very famous professor. Very famous professor. Lynn Hunt, Inventing Human Rights. Will you remember that book? Very important book. Okay. It is a comprehensive analysis of the history of human rights. Which part of the psyche is related to the pleasure principle according to Freud? We have pleasure principle, reality principle, and moral principle. It is id, or the mostly unconscious, that is related to pleasure principle. Superego is morality principle. Ego is reality principle. Will you remember, guys? Yes. Pleasure principle, id. Morality principle, superego. Reality principle is ego. Ego is negotiating between id and superego. Okay? Ego is dominating in Freud. Lacan did not like that. Today I said this to paid course students. Laura Mulvey, in her essay, Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema, critiques two types of pleasure, namely dash and dash, in popular cinema. Which are they? Laura Mulvey, in her essay, Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema, criticizes two types of cinema. Which are they? Scopophilia or voyeurism and narcissism. Scopophilia or voyeurism and narcissism. Will you remember, guys? Very good. Remember. In which essay did Lacan state the unconscious is structured like a language? My paid course students, are you here listening to me? Are you all enjoying YouTube babies? In which essay did Lacan state the unconscious is structured like a language? It is the instance of the letter in the unconscious, or reason since Freud. The instance of the letter in the unconscious, very famous essay. There is only one book that was published in Lacan's lifetime, that is Ecrit's. Remember that. Very good. Psychology of the Unconscious is a book by? Psychology of the Unconscious is a book by? I will give you a clue. He questioned Freud. It is Carl Jung. Carl Jung wrote Psychology of the Unconscious. Remember that. The Art of Loving is a 1956 book by the psychoanalyst and social philosopher. Who is he? You have to tell me. He develops his perspective on human nature. The Art of Loving, 1956 book. Art of Loving. It is by Erich Fromm. Famous book by Erich Fromm, so early, 1956. And Art of Loving. Which 1979 book on culture is subtitled The Meaning of Style? Which 1979 book on culture is subtitled Meaning of Style? It is by Dick Hebdish. Subculture by Dick Hebdish. Subculture is the book by Dick Hebdish. Remember that. Now, which book published in 1962 is subtitled The Making of Typographic Man? Which book published in 1962 is subtitled The Making of Typographic Man? I will give you a clue. It is by Marshall McLuhan. It is the Gutenberg Galaxy. Remember, guys, in Marshall McLuhan, there are lots of important terms and books. Please look up, okay? Please look up. Yes, Srinivas, I'm going to start next batch. Right after this exam, we'll start next batch. Maybe by March 20th or so. Which book by Richard Hoggart analyzes Yorkshire working class culture? You know that one. Yorkshire working class culture of the 1930s and 40s. Combined with a close reading of popular magazines. Which book by Richard Hoggart? Bolo? Of course, it is The Uses of Literacy. Very famous book by Richard Hoggart, 1957. Richard Hoggart, The Uses of Literacy, analyzes Yorkshire working class culture of the 1930s and 40s. And also popular magazines. There are so many other works, terms today itself based on these authors. Please look up. The Making of a Counterculture by Theodore Roszak traces the intellectual underpinnings of two groups. Which are they? The two counterculture groups that he talked about are student radicals and hippie dropouts. Student radicals and hippie dropouts. Okay. I did not get to teach all this in detail, but to criticize the dominating role of vision in scientific discourse. Who coined the term visualism? Tell me, there's a very important term in visual culture studies. To criticize the dominating role of vision in scientific discourse. It is Johann Fabian, German critic he is. German critic. Whatever I have not covered in my classes, I'm trying to cover like this, so that all the people who are writing will remember all this, and we will revise more and more. Theses on the Philosophy of History is an essay written by a German philosopher. This one is easy, you know, right? Theses on the Philosophy of History. It is Walter Benjamin. Theses on the Philosophy of History. Walter Benjamin. He also wrote The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. He wrote the Arcades Project. Hannah, What is the term for the idea that everybody should be treated equally and exactly the same? What is the term for the idea everybody should be treated equally and exactly the same? It is difference blindness. Difference blindness. There should be no difference. Everybody is equal. Hannah? Very good. Raymond Williams argued that culture is ordinary, not elite. He called for a democratic approach to the arts. In which work? You will be surprised to know there is a work called Culture is Ordinary. It is prescribed in universities also. Culture is ordinary. Are you getting me, guys? Just a couple more. For last question, in fact. Who is the author of Toward a Philosophy of the Act? Who is the author of Toward a Philosophy of the Act? It is Mikhail Bakhtin. My voice is cracking and I'm at the end of my energy and the questions are also over. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much, guys. I know that you will study. I will send this PDF only to my paid course students. Sorry, they are waiting for it. Others, please watch the video again if you need. Okay, guys. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow, 10 p.m. Same time, same place.